Hello and welcome to Norton from Home. I'm Ellen Roberts, Harold and Ann Berkley Smith Curator of American Art at the Norton, and today I'm going to discuss Henry Ossawa Tanner's oil sketch in the Norton's collection, The Seine Evening, painted around 1900. If you visit the Norton's American galleries, you'll see that this painting is tiny, but it is a little jewel, and it's fascinating to place it in the context of the rest of Tanner's art and career, so that's what I'm going to do today. Tanner painted one other painting of the Seine at evening, an oil sketch, and so it's interesting to compare these two works. This other painting is now in the collection of the National Gallery in Washington, and it's called The Seine, and also painted around 1900. If you look at these two paintings together, you'll see that they both look at a kind of characteristic view of Paris, the picturesque bridges crossing the Seine. And they both explore the beauty of the city as the sun is going down. But the Norton's painting it depicts a time of night that's much later than the National Galleries. Tanner would have known the works of his fellow American expatriate painter, James McNeill Whistler, and Whistler had been exploring this time of night and the light effects of this time of night in his work since the 1870s in the works he called his nocturnes. Tanner, like Whistler, was fascinated by the fact that at that time of night, the details of the scene begin to disappear into the dusk, bringing a certain abstraction into the composition, and that this abstraction exists in tension with the representation. As a modern painter, this fascinated Tanner. Tanner painted relatively few paintings of Paris, which is interesting because he lived there for the majority of his adult life, from the first time he visited in 1891 and decided to move there, and to his death in 1937. Also, Paris was very important for Tanner because it was the place he was able to establish himself as a major professional painter internationally, and he became the first African-American painter to do so. The French government even purchased his 1896 painting, The Raising of Lazarus, for its collection, and as a result, Tanner is one of the few American painters of his era who's represented in the French national collections today. The Raising of Lazarus is typical of Tanner's the kind of works that made Tanner famous in that it is a biblical scene, and it's also much larger than the oil sketches we've been looking at thus far. This is a finished composition meant for exhibition. But the Raising of Lazarus is also typical of Tanner's paintings and his biblical scenes in that it uses light and dark for expressive effect. Tanner was a master at this, and that's something that actually connects this kind of work to his oil sketches, which also show this kind of interest in light effects and their expressive potential. So that is the sense in which these kind of works are actually connected, even though they seem so different. Paris was also important for Tanner because it was a place where he could escape from American racism, which he had encountered growing up in Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, and later as a student at the Pennsylvania Academy of the Fine Arts in Philadelphia. At the Pennsylvania Academy of the Fine Arts, Tanner got great support from many of his teachers, but many of his fellow students were unfortunately much less supportive. And one example was that one evening they took his easel out into Broad Street in Philadelphia and tied him to it. This kind of experience haunted Tanner, and he wrote later about that. He writes, "To be made to feel that I was not wanted, although in a place where I had every right to be, even months afterwards, caused me sometimes weeks of pain. Every time any one of these disagreeable incidents came into my mind, my heart sank, and I was anew tortured by the thought of what I had endured, almost as much as the incident itself." In Paris's progressive artistic community, Tanner was able to escape from these kind of experiences, from this environment, and he was able to focus on establishing himself as a major professional painter, and that was his goal. So it seems to me particularly appropriate that Tanner's beautiful painting offers the Norton's visitors such a serene view of Paris. Thank you.